So I was mentioning this was a response to a RFP by a multilateral agency, which in partnership with a state government wanted to convert some of the district hospitals of that state government into a super specialty hospital and a medical college, teaching hospital and a medical college kind of a thing. So we were creating a name for this, and this is one of the most recent ones. That's why I'm sharing that. Yeah. So as I was mentioning, the RFP actually broke the whole project into 4 tasks. Not realizing that many of these tasks, the components given in many of these tasks were highly overlapping. They are not sequential as they are mentioned in the RFP, because many of the tasks which are given in task C, many of the components which are given in task C would actually have to be covered into task B, otherwise task B cannot be completed. So even if we have to repeat many of the processes, many of the approaches we take, we have to repeat them in response to RFPs, because that is a given structure which we should always follow to the core. While creating proposals for many of the public sector environments, and I showed you this proposal which I created recently for one of the healthcare providers in small town in Bihar. So there the task was a lot open-ended. The client wanted us to be creative and wanted us to guide him how to take this project forward, rather than completely define the project into set of needs and requirements as they are put into most of the public sector or multilateral agency RFPs. This private sector approach can also be taken at times in large corporate RFPs, like Tata's and all those companies which are governed in a corporate structure. They also give away projects in the RFP form, rather than just open-ended asking for proposals from select group of consultants. So they also open up RFPs and people have to respond to them. But then practically, very practically, you can still be creative in those RFPs. You can suggest your own components. You can take your own approach and methodologies, and you just should mention at places, and you can write in the mail while response that, you know, we have taken a different approach from what you have taken, but then this is good for the project, and we realize that, you know, you may have missed these components. So in private sector, you can be creative. Public sector RFPs, multilateral RFPs, you have to follow the wordings to the core. So that's what I was mentioning. We discussed about this proposal where it was a strategy project. We had to create a feasibility analysis report for a hospital in a certain city. And we broke the project into primary and secondary researches. Then we, based on that, we identified the components of the project, what the client should go for, and based on that, we defined the business model for the project. I already mentioned this, and I think till then internet was fine and I was able to go through you all. Any more queries on that? I'll be glad to take.
Any questions, any participant?
Because at that time somebody asked about proposals. If you want any specific answers from me about proposals, I'll be happy to answer that. You can write queries in the chat box also if you don't want to come on a video and ask that. I've opened my chat box. I'll be happy to answer from there also. So that was proposal creation. In the next session, I would be dealing with how we delivered that particular tier 2, tier 3 city project. What was the requirement from the client side, and how we took up the project. I'll try to deal with all the components, what problems we faced in delivering that project. Even before we started, what were the challenges for that project. And at the end, a few slides, 3-4 slides, I'll try to deal even from the current proposal, which I showed you all for the private sector, that what components we gave in the proposal, and some of the outcomes we create from our research during the delivery of that proposal. Right. So at the end, I'll take that. Finally, I'll show you a business model, financial feasibility model, which we create, and what components of that model practically comes from the microenvironment research which we do during the assignment. So that's what we'll be taking in the next session. We have some time, we can raise queries. That's one option we have. If not, I can propose another option. I can show you guys one of the feasibility project reports, a healthcare feasibility project reports. If you want to see that, I'll be happy to show one of that. We have half an hour, we can deal with that also. Priyanka ma'am, should we deal with that?
Sir, I think that will take it up.
Okay, sure. So anybody in our group who is from Jammu region? Do we have somebody from Jammu? So this was a project we did before the lockdown in Jammu. The client was from non-healthcare background. They had a vision that apart from their other projects, they wanted to create a large multi-specialty hospital for the region. There are none, so to say. We would assume that Jammu, being one of the most important cities of Jammu and Kashmir, would have large, good hospitals. But apart from public sector hospitals, there are none of the private sector hospitals are doing that well. So the client was very keen. We were happy to take that up. And We helped them in defining the project. We helped them in identifying components they should go for, the kind of hospital they should create. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
I'll go through this very quickly. Otherwise, we'll not be able to finish it in half an hour. So I'll go through it very quickly, very fast. If anybody wants to stop me at any place, please feel free to do that. Right? So this was a very similar proposal, kind of a proposal I showed you. This was very similar to that. We had to do a feasibility for a hospital. The client was completely from a non-healthcare background. So we defined the whole proposal for the project for them in a very similar fashion. We did a primary survey as well. Now, as I said, in these kind of strategy projects and micro market analysis, the research is smaller component. Sample sizes are very small, so to say. But if you see the healthcare system of these cities, especially Jammu kind of a place, there are not many private hospitals, not many even organized players in that city. That also, prevents us from doing a large research, since the targets are not there. Sample is so the overall census is so small that we don't have to have large samples, right? So we did a sampling. This is the sampling. 7 hospitals, 1 super specialty hospital. Obviously, public sector is very strong there. The government hospitals are large, and they are the ones who provide super specialty service in Jammu rather than any other private sector hospital, even till today. So we started with a healthcare, overall Indian healthcare kind of analysis. Because this report at times is also submitted to investors, and investors can be Indian and global either ways. In fact, this report was shown to some of the investors in China and Europe for funding, but then after that the lockdown happened and things did not go ahead there. Some of the Indian groups are very interested into this project right now, because after the removal of the acts, since buying land and owning property is much easier now in Jammu, so the national players are also now interested. While we were doing this project, the law was still there; it was not repealed. So while we interviewed many of the national players in India, the corporate hospitals, the clear answer was that we cannot take 300-400 crore kind of a risk in Jammu and Kashmir, because we have to go with local players, and if we don't own the land, the risk is much higher. So this was how we undertook the project. The Indian healthcare market at that time, what were the components which were influencing the healthcare segment, leading diseases. India at one point of time, was being a poor country, a third world country, had more of communicable diseases. And today the component and the expense of the country is much higher on the non-communicable side of the healthcare spectrum, which is cardiac, cancer, and all those kind of diseases. You can see this graph, the fish graph, completely turning towards opposite. And this has changed very rapidly. You can say I was lucky or unlucky in that sense that this actually changed during my career. When I started consulting in 2006, and it was still, the non-communicable was still smaller. But just in last 10-15 years, non-communicable have taken up the whole healthcare burden in India also. Like the developed countries, United States, Europe, all the developed nations has this problem. Now, India being in middle, neither the third world country nor we are not neither third world nor developed, still we have this kind of a burden on us. So we need more super specialty care as well today. This was the paying capacity. Again, these has come from secondary researchers. Obviously, the healthcare component have been increasing the expense on healthcare. Health insurance is a big play now. When I started in healthcare consulting, the health insurance patients in all the corporate hospitals was 10, 15, 20%. Today, it is upwards of 70% in most of the corporate hospitals in metro cities. So health insurance has played humongous role in development of our corporate healthcare environment and super specialty care in India. Obviously, we all understand how less number of doctors are there in India. Though in last 10 years, government has worked a lot. Every year, on an average, there have been 10 medical colleges which have been opened. In last 3-4 years, the number of seats in each medical colleges has increased from 50 to 100 and 100 to 150 admissions. So today we have more than 65,000 doctors graduating every year, which is huge. I mean, around 2010, we used to say if we open up 10 medical if we open up 20 medical colleges every year, we will be able to have enough doctors in India to fulfill the shortcoming in next 5 years. Now it seems we have already reached closer to that. If the number of medical colleges and number of seats keep on increasing, we may have excess doctor within next 3-4 years. And then after national level healthcare, we come to state level healthcare. So this is the flow from national to state and state to the micro market. So from macro market analysis to micro market analysis. This is how most of my projects flow, and this is how I think we all do that. So obviously Jammu Kashmir, the financial, the health of economy in state, industrial progress have been a little slow at that time. That was one of the reasons why Jammu did not have many corporate hospital any corporate hospital at all, because there were small scale industries. The businesses were also small scale. One of the reasons again was the Act, but hopefully things would improve after that. Sorry. Now this was the disease burden of Jammu and Kashmir. You can see very similar to national level. The cardiac diseases, lung diseases, they are much higher in Jammu and Kashmir as well. Actually, the Indian population genetically is very prone to diabetes and cardiac diseases. So it is in our genes. Compared to other global populations, diabetes just after Middle East, we are most prone. We and China are very much prone to diabetes, and the numbers have been increasing per capita in India as well. We have already surpassed the overall diabetic population of China, and per capita population also of China we have surpassed for diabetes, where we are compared to only Middle East, where the population is very low and component of diabetics is very high. We are just next to Middle East in that sense in diabetes. So alarming figures for non-communicable diseases in India. And same goes for Jammu and Kashmir also. Sorry. So we start with demographic analysis. The population, the kind of distribution it is there, the districts, the villages across. Hospital beds in Jammu. Now you see public sector beds are much higher in number than private sector beds. Very different than many other cities in India. This kind of a city, a state, capital kind of city, though Jammu is not state capital, but if you divide Jammu and Kashmir into two separate regions, so Jammu would be as important as Srinagar, for that matter. So very rarely you'll see that important a city having more public sector beds than private sector beds. Rarely in India. It could happen in tier 3 cities, tier 4 cities, where you don't have larger hospitals and almost all the hospitals are nursing home. Still, if you add up nursing home beds, most of the cities would have more hospital beds in private sector rather than public sector, and that was difference in Jammu. Jammu public sector beds were much higher in number. These were the hospitals there. Again, the private hospitals. Most of them were small. Medical college was there, but then that was not at all a super specialty hospital. The volume of patients was very low. Occupancy was very low there. And one of the reasons was that doctors were not available. So this was the analysis of each type of medical delivery system: quaternary care, multi-specialty, nursing homes, neighborhood clinics, all those. And what was the penetration in the population? That's what is explained here. This is the mapping of all the healthcare providers in the city, and almost all of them, except for Mata Vaishno Devi and the medical college. Obviously, the government medical college and super specialty hospital were larger, but all the other private sector were less than or around 50 beds. So based on our primary analysis and secondary analysis, we came to the conclusion that the high-end super specialty market has a gap, and this was a representation for that. Price position and level of care. Level of care is in healthcare, the more specialties, the higher end specialties you have, that becomes tertiary care and higher level of care, right? So there was only Vaishno Devi Hospital, which was in Katra, away from Jammu, 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers away from Jammu. So that was the only hospital which had some component of specialty, super specialty care in private sector. Otherwise, that was only available in public sector. So that is completely, vacant area where people can open up. Another vacant area was premium secondary care. So in Delhi, Bombay's, you must be seeing boutique birthing centers where they are very costly, but then standalone only delivery centers. So premium centers are also very low, though the income segment level in Jammu is very good. People are paying, but then most of the people have to travel to Delhi for premium healthcare segment. So both the segments were vacant. This was the specialty need gap analysis. Which of these specialties are available in the city, what kind of doctors are available in the city, how many of them are available. Based on that, we created this specialty need gap matrix. This was the project site, and we analyzed it and explained in further slides how that was a good site to go by, because the city is developing now in this region. The crowded core city is away and on the other side of the river. Now, catchment area of Jammu is huge. There is nothing between Jammu and Srinagar. None of the cities are developed except for maybe Udhampur. There is very little between Jammu and Srinagar where healthcare is there, and Jammu caters to all these light orange, dark orange districts completely. and even beyond that. Till if a super specialty hospital comes up in Jammu, many of the people from Srinagar coming to Delhi can be stopped in Jammu. That was the analysis which came from doctors' interview and other hospitals' interview. Because they said that many of the people who are staying in Jammu, Srinagar, have second home in Jammu. So they'll be able to, rather than stay with distant relatives in Delhi, they would prefer to stay in their own houses in Jammu and get treatment in Jammu if there is a super specialty hospital. So this is the kind of questions we keep in our researches when we talk to doctors and local providers and other healthcare experts. Even the great guys are marketing guys of the hospitals. They are able to, they have already analyzed the market. They know their catchment areas. So they are able to come up with these kind of information. So we keep these kind of questions in our research interviews always. This was the scope analysis. So we did. Then we defined the project. To define the project, we analyzed the market on several kind of components. The size of the hospitals which would have attraction there. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now one of the starting points for this project particularly was that we knew how much land is there, how much built up area can be made out of that land, and in that built up area, how many beds can be fitted. We had an understanding of that. At least that was the initial understanding. So one of the research components we had to incorporate was also to analyze, do we actually need a 400-bed hospital there? Is Jammu a market which can cater to a 400-bed hospital? So that was also one of the components we had to keep in our researches. Defining the criteria for shortlisting the specialties. Availability of doctor was a very important component when we were choosing the specialty. Because one of the answers we got in Jammu from almost all the providers is that you can come up with a building, a great building, you can buy costliest of equipments, but the doctors are not willing to come to Jammu. And one of the characteristics which each of the doctor we interviewed told us about Jammu's local population is that if you bring a doctor from outside, say Delhi, Bombay, or even foreign doctor, a doctor who is working in a Western country, but if that doctor is of Jammu origin, he may not get as much traction in the market. But if you bring doctors who are not originally from Jammu, people would accept them more. So we did not expect to get this answer, but as I was saying, that many of the interviews we try to keep open-ended rather than highly structured questionnaire-based interviews, because some of these answers we cannot expect at times. So open-ended, especially with the doctors, keeping them open-ended and interview-based always helps. So this was the specialty defining, which are the potential specialties which can be put into the hospital. And then based on the researches only, we defined the phasing of the project. Why? Because from the research we came to understand how much time did it take for the previous hospitals, private sector hospitals, to reach to mature levels and occupancy levels. And for certain specialties and departments, you need a critical kind of patient volume. Only then you can have enough patients to operate that department. So based on that, we define the phasing of the project, like transplants and that kind of super specialty. Patients don't believe in hospitals initially. So starting those departments in initial days is a huge cost, because salary levels of a transplant doctor is huge, and you don't get volumes in first few years. So rather than open up these, and also the operating rooms and equipments required for these departments is very costly. So rather than block your capital into these departments initially, one should always, open these departments only by time when the hospital occupancy reaches to a level. So based on analysis of the local population and other hospitals which were operating there and their occupancy cycle, we reached to a conclusion that third year should be when we should start up these super specialty departments. But then many of the doctor interviews also indicated that there are certain specialties which has to be there from the first day only, because that would become a differentiator for such a large hospital. Otherwise, people will not be able to differentiate this hospital from the existing hospitals, especially Mata Vaishno Devi Hospital. So oncology, the cancer care, that was first and most priority kind of a answer from all the doctors, that you have to keep oncology, because there are humongous number of cases which go to Delhi or other states. So if you have that, people will be attracted from the first day, and that will help other specialties also to operate properly and get footfalls for other specialties. This is how we defined all the specialties, super specialty diagnostics. Again, the phasing of beds, how many beds to be opened initially, how many beds has to be opened in which year, and what equipments has to be added. All those things we defined. We created a positioning. Again, this was again based on the research and what we came to understand from the market, that what kind of position should this proposed hospital should have in the market based on pricing and level of care. Obviously, in the previous slides, we saw that this was the top end was the gap which we had. The high end, high to mid end pricing tertiary care hospital. This was the so we define the whole infrastructure of the project and the specialties in this section. 400,000 square feet of built up area, 400 crores, phasing of each of it. What should be the differentiations between this hospital and others? Then we created the financial model, and this was the whole project delivery of that sort. So we ended on the financial feasibility of the project. Any queries on that? Hope this was good from understanding point of view, how we deliver a hospital feasibility project and what kind of research components are into it. Any queries?
Participants, if they have any queries, can ask to Ankur sir.
So, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Beam sir, tell me.
Yes, sir. I am basically from Jharkhand and Bokaro,
Yes.
sir. Actually, what we have found, sir, we have the great big hospital in the Bokaro, but people haven't done the belief system that about. So how we can change that mindset up, or otherwise how we can set what we can think to set up the new hospital and about that area.
Sorry, can you repeat? Your voice is very low.
Hello, just a minute, sir. Now it is audible, sir?
Much better, sir.
Okay. So actually, sir, in the Bokaro, there is a hospital of Sale, very big hospital.
Yes, I know that. My relatives used to stay in Bokaro earlier. They retired, got retired, but yeah.
But the majority of the peoples who are entitled in that hospital, they are not also believing that one. They are going outside of that one.
Right.
Yeah. So that how we can think to set up a new hospital in that particular area, so that we can serve the peoples. That means their requirement. Majority of the people they're moving from outside. Even the small work, somebody is injured by leg or something, also they are not believing on that hospitals.
So, there is a very basic problem with all these industrial hospitals. Many of these cities were, populated practically in the middle of nowhere. These were jungles. Same goes for Tata Steel. I did a huge project. I created a 20-year healthcare strategy for the city itself, for Tata Steel, Jamshedpur city. So similar is the case of Bokaro Steel City. Similar is the case of Bhilai, though Bhilai is now changing, so to say. The problem with these cities is that the whole city was created based on one industry. Both
Yes.
the employees of that industry and the surrounding population, everything depended on that industry. And since long, for health, every healthcare need for non-employees also, the local population also, everybody dependent on the hospital created by that industry. Now these hospitals have gone old. The infrastructure is old. The problem is that they being in the middle of nowhere, there is no large metro city around Bokaro, right?
Yes,
Ranchi
yes.
is 50 kilometers, but Ranchi is also not um, aspirational, so to say, for today's doctors, right? Most of the
Yes.
doctors would want their families to stay in metro cities. So, being in middle of nowhere, many of the specialists, super specialists, don't want to stay in these cities. Now, Bokaro and, so to say, even Tata Steel is not able to attract good doctors,
Yes, yes.
specialists and super specialists in their own hospitals, though they are private sector. Government has the problem of pay scaling and all those things. Even Tata Steel is not able to attract many people in Jamshedpur, though Jamshedpur compared to Bokaro is a much better city in such senses. But then they are not able to attract doctors, uh, especially specialists and super specialists. The moment you don't have that kind of brand name in doctors, psychologically patients tend to go away from that hospital nowadays. Uh, Again, as I said while I was explaining my own project, the proxy of quality of all these specialties and all the departments, for a layman like a patient who doesn't understand clinical care much, becomes brand name and the infrastructure. Now both infrastructure and the kind of doctors both have gone old in these industrial hospitals, so they are not able to attract patients anymore, even the employees. Now, there are other reasons also why many of the employees go out for treatment, and we all understand that because of the referral system and cuts and commission. That's there. But otherwise, also, these hospitals are not able to attract good doctors, and hence the patients want to go away. They force the local doctors to refer them to corporate hospitals in metro cities, right? So unless and until, so that is Bokaro. You were also asking why not Ranchi. Now Ranchi, people are trying to open up corporate hospitals. Medanta is already there. They took over the Apollo building. Earlier Fortis took over that. Other corporate hospitals are also trying to open up there. But the problem is same. These cities are not able to project themselves as aspirational cities. Would say, if a kid studying in a school there goes to a IIT and then goes to a IIM, he will never get a job there because there are no industries of that kind, right?
Yes, sir.
The other infrastructure, even if somebody opens up an industry, the infrastructure is not there. The theaters, the roads, the malls are not as good as metros. So these are also very important components, the surrounding environment of healthcare system to attract manpower.
Thank you, sir.
Any more queries?
Any more queries from any other participant? So if there are no queries, then we'll break for lunch.
Sure.
We'll have a half an hour break. So we will join back at 1 o'clock.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Till then, everyone can have a break.
See you after by 1. Thanks.